you guys can find seats somewhere, or if you want to, the front row is wide open. Just saying, if anybody wants to sit up front, I promise I don't spit most of the time. Sometimes I do. But you can sit wherever you would like. You know, there's this term, Chelsea, I'm going to move these. Okay. My ADHD it would be all over the place if I stared at the mics the whole time. Thank you. There you go. Perfect. That's great. You know, there's this term called If you don't know anything about me, my name is Pastor Drew. I'm the pastor here at Trinity Wesleyan Church, and I have ADD. Just want to start out. Children, you are dismissed to kids' church if you would like to go. Pastor Jennifer has a great lesson for you. So if you have signed in, and any parents that are here with the Wave Airs, if you would like any of your children to go, we have a desk that you can sign in. You get a tag so you can pick up your children afterwards. You have to pick up your children afterwards, just saying. Okay. We do not let them spend the night anymore. And I'm positive. Sorry. There's a term crossroads in life. This term crossroads in life is literally, there's a point in our life where a vital decision has to be made. You know, it comes from, coming to a crossroad at the road where, it goes, and you can either take a left, a straight, or a right, and whichever way you go, that is going to determine the direction of your life. Throughout life, as we go through life, there are many times that we come upon a crossroad. How many are seniors in here? I've heard there's quite a few seniors this year. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yes. All right. As a senior, you are at a crossroad in your life, correct? Can you feel it? Right? As a senior, the crossroad is this. What do I do when I am no longer forced to go to school? Because up until now, my entire life, I have been forced to go to school every day of my life, it feels like. And now I'm at a crossroads. What do? I'm throwing my cap in the air. I'm about to graduate, and I have a choice. Do I go into workforce right away? What job am I going to get? Am I going to go to college? And if I go to college, what college am I going to get? Right now, my son is a senior this year. He's going through this same thing, and we're at this crossroads and trying to figure out he's going to go to college, but then it's like, well, what college? There's like 1 billion colleges out there, and they all cost $1 billion. And it's like, we're about to travel to South Carolina to visit one just to see, where is he going to go? Do I go to a trade school? Do I just get a job? What am I going to do? It's a big deal. A crossroad. Getting married, other crossroads in life that we've been through. Getting married is a big crossroad. I'm about to commit myself to someone for the rest of our lives. I remember when I determined that Stacy, my wife, was the one that I wanted to be married to the rest of my life, and I remember picking out the ring and getting it, and I was so nervous to ask her father if I could marry her because I thought, this is a big deal. This decision is going to change my life forever. Births, children, anniversaries, jobs. There's different crises that happen in life. The death of a loved one, loss of a job, financial hardship, health problems. Those are all crossroads that we come to in life. All things that can change our life with whatever we do, with the decisions that we make. This morning, I just want to take some time, and what do you do? What do we do when we're at a crossroad in life? What do we do when we're faced with that vital decision? We've been studying Genesis. We've been studying Genesis since January, and we're kind of going through the book of Genesis, chunk by chunk. And where we're at now is we're at this man named Jacob, and Jacob is at a crossroad. The passage that we're going to read is at this crossroad in life. And so I want to look at this passage. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 32. Genesis chapter 32, verses 3, I think is where we're going to begin. I think I'll have it on the screen. The background of what has happened, just to let you know what's kind of happened. Last week we looked at Isaac, which is Jacob's father, and Isaac had these wells, and he was showing love to his enemies, and it was. If you want to look at it, you can go on Facebook and watch it last week. But Isaac had these twin boys named Jacob and Esau. Actually, it should be Esau and Jacob because Esau was born first. Now, with these twin boys, there was strife between the two. There was so much strife that Jacob actually left his home, went far away, and moved away for about 20 years. Now, if you want to read some interesting things, read the story of Jacob's life before this, the chapters before this, where he marries two different sisters, has 11 children, and has a bunch of sheep with stripes and spots, okay? Just saying. Go ahead and read it. It's amazing. Well, in Genesis 31, the chapter before we pick up, God comes to Jacob and says, I want you to return home. So God has just put Jacob in this crossroad. He says, this is your decision. I don't want you to stay here anymore. It's time to go home. And that is where we pick up. Jacob is about to head home. Verse 3 says, Then Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir in the land of Edom. He told them, Give this message to my master Esau, humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now I've been living with Uncle Laban, and now I own cattle, donkeys, flocks of sheep and goats, and many servants, both men and women. I've sent these messengers to inform my Lord of my coming, hoping that you will be friendly to me. So Jacob he starts to move, and he has this whole crowd going. In fact, right before this, he sees angels, and he calls it God's camp. And he sends the men ahead to let Esau know he's coming, because he's traveling with a large family, with a lot of servants, with a large flock, and it takes time to travel that. With that big of crowd, it takes a long time to get there. So he just picked a couple quick minutes and said, hey, go tell him that we're coming first. That way, when he sees this large caravan, he's not worried, or he's not thinking what in the world's about to happen. So they deliver the message, and after verse 6, he says, after delivering the message, the messengers returned to Jacob and reported, we met your brother Esau, and he's already on his way to meet you with an army of 400 men. They came and they said, he has an army, he has a bunch of men, he has 400 men coming out to meet you. Now, at this point, I'm sure Jacob thought, oh no, he's about to kill me. In fact, that's exactly what Jacob thought was, he is going to kill me. I don't have an army. He's bringing all these men. He is going to kill me. I need to run. I don't have an army. All I have is some sheep, donkeys, and camels. There's no way I can fight him. He is in trouble big time. This is a crossroad of his life right here. Do I keep going, or do I run? See, the reason he's so worried, the reason he is so afraid right now is because there was trouble between him and his brother from birth. All the way back from the time they were born, it says that Jacob was actually grabbing Esau's heel as they were coming out. They're twins, right? And then as they're growing up, the dad really liked Esau. Because Esau was like a hunter, he was like a man's man type thing. They was like, oh yeah, I like him. And then Jacob liked his mom, he liked to stay in the house, and so he was, so the parents played favorites. And anybody have parents that play favorites? No, don't raise your hand. I was once asked, I have 3 children, a daughter and 2 boys, and I was once asked if I have a favorite child. The answer is yes. And it just depends on the day. Okay, it's so true. It just depends on what's happening at the moment or which one's my favorite. Well, Esau had his favorite, the dad had his favorite, which was Esau. The mom loved Jacob, and so there was this conflict from the very beginning. Then we find out that Jacob actually cheats his brother out of his birthright. He talks his brother into selling his birthright, which is like all his inheritance, for a bowl of soup. Which makes his brother really mad because he was like, oh, I just sold my whole inheritance for soup. And then, as the dad is about to die, as he's getting really, really old, and he wants to give a blessing, which was like the most important thing at the time. He wants to bless his son Esau. The mom says, hey, Jacob, let's make this really cool plan. Esau's going to go away and go hunting for some food. I'm going to make a stew. You're going to come. You're going to put goat hair on your arm so that you feel like your brother. You're going to put his clothes on so you smell like your brother because dad's blind now. He won't know. And we're going to lie to your father so that you can get the blessing. So not only do you get the inheritance, but you also get the blessing. So his mom and Jacob both lie to the dad. The dad blesses and gets his brother's blessings. And the last words, basically, that Jacob hears from Esau is, I'm going to kill you. That's what it says. It says, in the chapters earlier, it says that he decided that when Isaac dies, when the dad dies, he's going to kill his brother. Conflict. A lot. There's a lot of family conflict. In fact, the more I read about this family, if you ever want to do an interesting family study, the more I read about this family, the whole family is based on lies and deception and hate. He just had 11 kids. Jacob just had 11 kids from 4 different moms. The more I read about this family and how messed up some things are and how it's founded on deception and lying, and I think this is the family that God chooses to use. This is the family that God chooses to bring about salvation to the world. What amazes me is that even in the midst of a fractured family, even in the midst of family dysfunction, God is present and at work, showing compassion and faithfulness. I am so amazed at the people that God uses for his glory. In fact, I am amazed at how he still wants to use us and bless us even when we mess up. In fact, I am amazed that God even still puts up with me. For the amount of times that I have messed up, he still works in me. God wants to use you. God wants to use me. He wants to use us even when we mess up and even when we come from a fractured life. He still loves us. He still loves me when I try and I fail, and I try on my own strength and I fail on my own strength. In fact, that's usually what happens. That's usually the reason why we fail. Because we do it on our own instead of on God's strength. God can use our mess for his glory. So they come to Jacob and they said, he's coming to kill you. There's 400 people. There's 400 armed. There's an army of 400. He's going to kill you. And Jacob says, what do I do? And this is what he does. Ready? In verse 9. He says, then Jacob prayed. Jacob turns to God. Actually, he turns to God and he says, "O God of my grandfather Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and to your relatives. And you promised me, I will treat you kindly." Jacob hears he's about to die, and he with an army of 400, and he turns to God and he says, "But God, you told me to do this." He said, "God, I thought you said to return, and now I am about to face this really big problem. God, how can I face this problem when you are the one who told me to do it?" You ever been in a situation like this where you feel like you're doing God's will, or you think you know you're doing God's will, and all of a sudden something happens and it's like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? Right? God, I'm obeying you, and look, I'm obeying you right now, but now it looks like there's problems ahead. God, you told me to do this, and now I'm about to face this hardship. There's so many times where we say this, and the problem is this, that there is this lie that we have believed. Even if we don't say it out loud, so many times we live it. And the lie is this. If I'm following God, if I'm doing what he says, then life will be easy. If I'm following God and doing his will, then I will have no problems. That I will have no heartaches. I will have no losses. It's a lie that says if I am in God's will, life will be a piece of cake. That's why so many times when we say things like, God, why would you do this to me? I've gone to church. I've been following you my whole life. Why is this happening? That comes from the belief of, well, everything's going to be easy if I follow God. Or when we say things like, I thought this was what God wanted, but things aren't going well. They're kind of rocky right now, so maybe it's not God's will. It must not have been because, you know what, if I'm following God's will, it won't get rocky. You ever said something like that? If I follow God, then life will be easy, but that's not what Jesus says. In fact, this is how Jesus says it. In John 16, Jesus says it this way. He said, I've told you these things, and he's talking to his disciples, so that in me you may have peace. And then he says, in this world you will have trouble. Now, that's what Jesus says. Jesus says, look, in this world, he talks about being in me. He says, in this world you are going to have trouble. It's not going to be easy. Jesus says it this way in Mark. He says, if anybody would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Listen, taking up your cross is not, this life is going to be easy. Taking up your cross is a lifetime of self-giving. A lifetime of following. A lifetime of serving. Taking up your cross is not easy. Having trouble, Jesus says, I guarantee there will be trouble. But then he says, but take heart because I have overcome it. Jesus said things like, if they persecute me, they will persecute you. So life is going to be hard. Okay? There will be trouble. The reason it's going to be hard and the reason there will be trouble is because we live in a fallen world. We live in a sin-filled world. The effects of sin are everywhere. Just look around. And God never promised that there would be no valleys. There's nowhere in Scripture that he says, I promise you there will be no valleys in your life. There is nowhere in Scripture he says, I promise there will not be any giants. He never promised no giants in front of us. He never promised that there would be no burdens in life. He never promised that there would be no storms in life. But what he does promise, he says, if you follow me in those valleys, in the valley of the shadow of death, I will comfort you. He says, there will be valleys, and I will comfort you in those valleys. He says, look, there will be giants that you will have to face, but I will give you strength to overcome the giants in your life, I promise. God says there are burdens, but you know what? When you have burdens, I will give you rest. I will give you rest from your burdens. In fact, Jesus says, I will carry your burdens. Cast your cares on me, for I will care about you. He says, I will give you rest. My yoke is light. When you have a burden, I'll give you rest. When there's storms in life, I will give you peace. And he will calm you through the storms. So he just never promises to calm all the storms in life, but he will promises that he will calm you during those storms. God says, I am with you always. I've got this. And it may be more than you can handle on your own, but it will never be more than what God can handle. So Jacob says, but God, you told me to go. And now it looks like there's a problem. He says, you promised me I will treat you kindly. He continues in verse 10, he says, I'm not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness that you have shown to me, your servant. When I left home and crossed the Jordan, I owned nothing except a walking stick. Now my house fills 2 large camps. O Lord, please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I'm afraid, I'm terrified, literally. It says, that he is coming to attack me along with my wives and children. But you promised me I will surely treat you kindly. And I will multiply your descendants until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore. Too many to count. Jacob prays and he says, God, you told me, and I'm obeying you, but you've brought me this far, and I am terrified. I am afraid, but please do not forget your promise to me. Please don't forget your promise. So Jacob, as if prayer doesn't work, he figures that, if the prayer doesn't work, I'm going to go ahead and bribe my brother. Right? So Jacob stayed where he was for the night. He selected gifts from all his possessions, presented to his brother. He gets 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, 10 male donkeys. He divided these animals into herds, assigned each different servants, and he told his servants, go ahead of me with the animals, but keep some distance between them. So he decides, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and send these to my brother and bribe him so that if he's really going to kill me, at least maybe he will change his mind. Verse 21, he says he went to bed that night. Spends the night at camp. You ever had a night before a big event where you feel that nervousness? You know something is about to happen. Something big is about to happen, and you just cannot sleep. I'm sure that's exactly what he felt. In fact, I won't read it because we don't have time this morning. But it says that night he actually wrestles with an angel. He wrestles with God that night. Sometimes that's just what happens at night when we feel that. We just have to wrestle with God. He wrestles with God. And the next morning he wakes up with a limp. If you want to read that, it's in chapter 32. Chapter 33 is the next morning. The next morning he wakes up, chapter 33, verse 1, it says, then Jacob looked up and he saw Esau coming with his 400 men. He divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives. He put the servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead. As he approached his brother, he bowed down to the ground 7 times before him. He's going to meet his brother. He doesn't know if this is going to be the end of him. He doesn't know what's about to happen, so he splits his family up so that they all don't die at the same time. And he goes to Esau, and he's hoping upon hope that Esau forgives. And at this point, it's either Esau is going to forgive him or Esau is going to take his revenge and he's dead. Talk about a crossroad. This is Esau's opportunity to finally get back at his brother. We serve a God that's in the restoration business. We serve a God that can restore relationships. Even relationships that seem so broken that it is impossible. Even relationships that ended with, I'm going to kill you and I don't want to see you for another 20 years. We serve a God that can restore broken relationships. In fact, that's exactly what happens. He bows down before him, and then Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, kissed him, and they both wept. Esau forgives. God had taken care of it. Esau forgives, and God had taken care of it. In fact, Jacob didn't even have to bribe him. If you continue to read, Jacob's like, well, why did you send all those animals ahead of me? Or Esau's like, why'd you send all those animals? And he's like, well, Jacob's like, well, those are your gift. And he's like, well, I don't need those. And he's like, well, I can't take them back. They're already yours. You can't take back a gift once it's been given. He didn't have to bribe him. Jacob didn't have to worry because God had already taken care of it. God was already at work. When God said, I want you to go, God was already at work in Esau's life. And all that worrying was pointless. So let me go back. Let me finish with this. Let me go back to the word crossroads. Jacob was at a crossroads in his life. What do I do? And in verse 9, it tells us exactly what he did. It says this, and then Jacob prayed. When we are at a crossroads, the first thing, the very first thing, is prayer. Then Jacob prayed. In the past, you know what Jacob did? Jacob lied. In the past, when he was at a crossroad, he manipulated. And in the past, and then when he was at a crossroad, he did whatever he could to get his own power, to build his own self up. And every time he did something other than pray, it led to trouble. But this time, he gets to a crossroad and he cries out to God. And he says, God, I know that this looks like there's trouble, but God, I'm going to trust in you. Remember your promise. And it works out. This time Jacob prayed and God took care of it. When we are at a crossroads and we're at a hard time, the first thing we should do is pray. Jacob prayed and he let God know that he was scared. He realized that God was in control and that God blesses. This morning, my challenge for you is that when you are at your crossroad, whatever it is, the first thing you do isn't try to do it on your own, isn't try to fix it yourself. The first thing we need to do is pray. Let's pray. God, we do give you praise this morning. Father, I just thank you for these students that are serving you in the Wayfarers, Lord. Thank you just for their heart, their willingness. Thank you for the beautiful voices. Thank you for these songs that they sang just to bring us into your presence. Lord, I pray that you will just bless them. Lord, that you will pour your Spirit out upon them. Lord, that as they face crossroads, as we face crossroads in our lives, that we will remember to come to you first, and that we will trust in you. Lord, we love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. If you would, just give it up one more time for the Wayfarers for the beautiful job they did. Thank you again. You guys, you are truly amazing, and you are dismissed.